Well, E plus R equals O, it shows up in the first chapter of my book, and also the first thing I ever do in any training. Foundationally, it has to do with responsibility. So E plus R equals O stands for event. An event occurs, you then have a response to that event, and that produces the outcome. And what people want in life is good outcomes. They want to be healthy and wealthy and have great relationships, be peaceful, happy, joyful, significant, make an impact, live long time, pain free and so forth. But those are all outcomes of how you responded to an earlier event.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Smarter Online Safety Podcast. I'm your host, Jocelyn King, the Queen of Online Safety. And boy, do we have a special episode for you today. I am so excited. We have with us the one and only Jack Canfield, a 47-time New York Times bestselling author. You know him from the author of The Success Principles and co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. Jack's Chicken Soup book series has broken records, selling 600 million copies worldwide and being translated into dozens of languages. He has 2.5 million subscribers and followers on social media, and he's been featured on over 1,000 TV and radio shows. He's trained thousands of Canfield Success Principles trainers in 107 countries. He founded the Transformational Leadership Council, and he was inducted into the National Speakers Association Speakers Hall of Fame. He's also a Harvard graduate with a master's degree in psychological education. And I have to say, in full disclosure, I've known Jack for several years. It's been an honor and a privilege, and he's been a mentor and guide to me. And I am a certified Canfield success trainer and coach, and I have used his success principles to build the incredible life I'm now fortunate to be living. And as a fun fact, to get certified, I had to teach Jack himself one of his own principles from the stage with him front and center in the audience. It was, I mean, Jack, it was terrifying and also satisfying. And I'm glad to say I did it in one take and passed. And
You
you were
did.
incredibly helpful and encouraging to me and all of us.
Well, I'm glad you so deserve to be as effective as you can in the world. You have so much value to share with everyone. So any small part I played in that, I'm really grateful to have
Oh, well,
participated.
thank you for that. And thank you so much for joining us today.
My
And I'm
pleasure.
particularly glad you're here right now because, in my 20 years as an executive in Silicon Valley, we've never seen anything like this AI tsunami that's hitting everybody. And people need real practical help. Everyone's feeling this combined emotions of being excited and afraid and overwhelmed. And for me on the security side, that means that they're not taking the actions they need to protect themselves against these rapidly multiplying AI cybercrime attacks. And they're staying vulnerable and sitting ducks, really, when they know they should be taking, proactive action. And the reason I wanted to have you on today, and I'm so glad you're here, is because you have this truly impactful foundational tool and multiple principles that can really help. So for people who are not familiar with you, or they're familiar with you, but they're maybe not familiar with your foundational tool. Could you talk about the E+R=O formula that you have?
Well, E plus R equals O, it shows up in the first chapter of my book, and also the first thing I ever do in any training. Foundationally, it has to do with responsibility. So E plus R equals O stands for event. An event occurs, you then have a response to that event, and that produces the outcome. And what people want in life is good outcomes. They want to be healthy and wealthy and have great relationships, be peaceful, happy, joyful, significant, make an impact, live long time, pain free and so forth. But those are all outcomes of how you responded to an earlier event. Simplistically, I could say, I give you a piece of chocolate cake, you eat it, that's your response. The outcome is you get more calories, maybe you put on a quarter of an ounce or whatever, and maybe you don't sleep that well that night, but that's the outcome of your response to the event. Someone else says, well, I'm not eating sugar right now, they get a different outcome. Financially, I give you a $2,000 bonus, you invest it, you put it into, let's say a good cryptocurrency, or you invest it in your education, or you put it in stocks. At the end of the year, your now net worth has gone up. Someone else takes that and goes to Vegas and gambles and loses it all. Their outcome, maybe they had fun for a couple hours, but they don't have that outcome of increased net worth. So people are always complaining about their outcomes. I'm not healthy. I'm overweight. I don't have what I want. I got hacked, whatever. And so the reality is we have to take responsibility. Now, the interesting thing is in the world that we're talking about today,
Mhm.
the event is constantly evolving. I think about this. The current E out there is that we know that people are getting hacked all the time.
Mhm.
People are, well, what's interesting, I thought about this last night. People are waiting for something to happen. Most people, if they get hacked, my sister got hacked last week, by the way. Um,
Mm.
Now she's all like, "What do we do? What do we do?" Is you're waiting, but here's the E. Don't wait for the hack to be the E. The E right now says that everything is under under siege. I read some statistics recently that one study said a cyber attack happens every 39 seconds, which is over 2,200 cyber attacks a day.
Right.
I think Microsoft said that it detects about 600 million threats a day. There
Yes.
was a study that said that I think 45% of professionals had fallen victim to cyber attack or
Yes.
scam. I
Yes.
walked into the kitchen not about a year ago. My wife's on the phone with someone with an Indian accent, and I
Mhm.
heard her say at one point, he was from Microsoft. Or no, it was a face Apple, and he said, "Do you have a problem with your computer?" And he had an Indian accent, and he said, "No, no. Will you give me control of your computer? I'm going to put this up here. You say yes, then I'll fix the problem." I said, "Don't you dare!"
Yeah.
And it was totally a fishing expedition to take
Right.
over her computer and download all this reality. And so, if we know that there's all this happening, that's the E that most people are not paying attention to. And so, we
Correct.
have to now take response. Now, there's only three responses we can have to anything: it's your thoughts, your images, your visual thoughts, really, and
Mhm.
your behavior. And so,
Mhm.
we have to change our thinking, our mindset around cybersecurity, and we also have to change our action. And for most people, what it is called inaction. They're not doing anything, they're waiting.
Right.
And so waiting is a response, but the outcome often is, you wait too long. I mean, wouldn't we all have liked to have bought Bitcoin when it was $8? One of my young son at the time, his friend bought it when it was $8 in high
Ah,
school. He's
yes.
now, I think he's worth $30 million. He's 30 years old.
Wow.
I had the opportunity. I didn't do it. I waited too long, So basically, the same thing is true here. So I think ultimately it gets out of like blaming anybody because
Mhm.
we're always responsible for our response to the events. And that's what we have to like really focus on if we want our life to be better. What are the responses of highly successful people? And in this case, in your world of cybersecurity.
That is such great advice because I really do see that. And everybody, just think about where you could use E+R=O in your life today. But most people are waiting to get hacked. Some people think oh, I don't have enough money. I'm not important enough to get hacked. They don't realize that all these automated tools means that they're being hacked. I mean, and you're right about the 37 seconds. Somebody's having their identity stolen and everything, but every 0.67 seconds, someone is in some way victimized by cybercrime.
Wow.
So every 2 seconds, three people are having something, their emails being compromised,
Right.
their data is being stolen. And so less than a second. And when you think about that, waiting to not only get hacked, but to be aware that you've been hacked, to have your life savings drained, or to have your accounts taken over. And by the way, something about AI that I want to point out, you mentioned the voice with your wife. Well, now for less than the price of a Netflix subscription, these criminals can get AI tools that disguise their voice. So that same Indian gentleman can now sound like he's from your hometown. He's going to sound like
Right.
he's a member of your family, and in real time, so he can have a real conversation and not have any foreign accent or anything compromising. And because they can also, they can also appear to be a local phone number. You add that combination, and it could sound like somebody who's from your area code who sounds just like you. And that is a real setup for an event that nobody wants, an outcome that nobody wants.
Yeah. I think in this day and age, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Yes,
We
yes.
have to remember that. And it's incredible how fast it's all shifting. And it's automated, as you say.
Mhm,
Literally, someone can send out something could be happening like someone could hack my list of 2 million people and then
mhm.
it could send something to all of them in a day,
Yes.
and then all of them would think they got something from me to go
Mhm.
there and open up this thing, which now exposes them to being, having something put in their computer. It's insane.
And takes
How?
them to a link that, yeah,
Yep. Yep.
exactly. No, that is so true. So, one of the things that's so impactful about what you do is also how you get people to think about starting their day. And, because most people pick up their phone and they get immediately hijacked into whatever the worst news of the day is. And then they're playing catch up and defense at best all day
Right.
long instead of proactively deciding what they want their life to be. So could you talk a little bit more about where you go from the E+R=O into actually taking charge of your day? And I have a personal vested interest in this for everybody listening so that they can finally take an action today that's going to help them be safer.
Well, one of the most important phrases I ever learned was from my mentor, W. Clement Stone. He was worth $600 million back in the what was it, early 70s, 68, 70, when I worked with him.
Hmm.
And he was the guy who really created the phrase "Do it now." It's a Nike swish now. Do it now. But he
Just
used
do
to
it.
give out these round wooden, about the size of a 50-cent piece,
Mhm.
and it said TUIT on it. And people go, "What's this for?" He said, "We're always saying you'll do it when you get around to it. You now have a round to it, so do it." And he was basically saying, as soon as you have that thought, take the action. You see a lot of people now with the 10-second rule and things like this. If you think it, at least ink it. So you now taking the next action step to make it happen. And I
Mhm.
think it's important. I teach this idea of the morning routine. It's the most valuable time in the morning. And everyone talks about meditation, exercise, journal writing, that kind of thing. But also, I think about, you could literally have an online morning routine where you
Mhm.
would say, okay, just like brushing your teeth. I never leave my house without brushing my teeth, putting on underarm deodorant, taking a shower, shaving, brushing my hair, etc. And also doing the other things I mentioned. But, check your privacy settings. Make sure that I get lots of emails and I get on lots of lists that people sell their list to each other, and God knows where all this stuff comes from. But I'm
Mhm.
eventually, I sweat once a day getting something from your package is held up. We need you to go in here and do this and give us your whatever. And
Yes.
I always go up and say, well, what's the return address on this? That's not UPS. That's not FedEx. Wait a second.
Good going. That's the number one thing. It's usually from a Gmail or Yahoo or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And often, it's a foreign place, etc. Are your passwords up to date? Have you been using the same one too much? Are they too similar? Did you back up your files? I literally have files in the cloud. I have files on my computer. There's files, they're backed up on our company computer, my personal files, and I have an external hard drive. So all of that, make sure that you're doing that kind of thing, consistently creating those safety checks, if you will. I call it digital hygiene.
That's what I call it too. That's
Oh,
perfect.
good.
That's awesome. And I think too, there's things that you need to kind of look at every day, but then there's kind of more of like a weekly review model. Like for instance, people ask me how often should you change your passwords? And one thing, I'm a big advocate for using a password manager. So if you use 1Password or Bitwarden, those are the top two used by cybersecurity professionals ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, over 70% use one of those two. And then you just have to remember 1Password. But when you go in, what it does is it will show you which account of your hundreds, because people have hundreds. Most people think they have 50 accounts, but the average person right now, by the end of this year, is going to be at 400 on average.
Wow. Wow.
Because you have things you set up in 2009 and forgot about. And every time you can't buy something now and get a 10% off coupon without signing up for an account. And
Right.
all of those roads lead into your inbox. And so um, all of those 400, or give or take, will, when they've been in a breach, your password manager is going to alert you to that. It's going to say you need to change this. So you get these alerts. So you don't have to vigilantly be checking 400 accounts, but you do need to check your one safe haven that's going to alert you to the actions you do need to take. And you want to do that. Obviously, those things you want to do sooner rather than later.
So unpack that one a little bit because I don't think I've fully ever understood that about the password manager thing. Because a
Yes.
lot of times I'll see things like, "Do you want to save this password?" And I honestly admit that I'm not really clear what I'm doing there. So educate
Perfect.
people
That's
through
great.
me at this moment on that.
That's perfect. And everybody listening gets to hear too. So usually when you're being asked that, it's probably because you're on a browser and it's wanting to save it to Chrome or something like that. Those are safer than writing them on Post-it notes or keeping them in you never want to put your passwords in a document on your laptop or on your Google Drive or anything, because those are the first things that are found. And people, it's so easy to hack in and get those. So never use Post-its or document files or Excel files or anything like that. So saving things, if you're an Apple user, you have your password, chain that you can use, and Google browsers and things like that are good. But the best thing by far is to download 1Password or Bitwarden. You're talking about $4 a month for 1Password, and it will not only save everything for you, it'll also keep uh, secure copies of things like your password and your driver's license. So while you're traveling, you can have them, available to you without just having to have hard copies of everything. And you just have to remember 1Password, and that's why it's called 1Password. But you just create, and you can even use their website. They have a password generator that will give you that that complex, unique password that you're always told to get.
Right,
It'll generate that for you. You can create one yourself. A lot of people will use a passphrase that uses numbers and letters.
right,
And you could even do something that had chicken soup in it. Probably not for you because that's associated with you, but let me use it as an
right,
example.
right, right,
The soup would be S0UP as an example, and things like the S could be a dollar sign. So you can use characters and things. But you create one 12 to 16 character password or passphrase, and then you use that to log in. What's great about that, Jack, is when you actually use 1Password and you're on your browser, instead of going to the website you want to be at, like your bank, let's say you bank with Bank of America, instead of bofa.com, you open your password manager app on your desktop, and it's going to ask for your either type your password in, or if you've got a biometric, a fingerprint or Face ID, it'll
right.
take you in. You just search for BOFA and you say open and fill. It takes you to the website. It puts your email or username in and your password and logs you in securely.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
And it's protected by so many multiple layers of encryption that the last time I checked, it would take a supercomputer 154 years to crack it. And if anybody ever did hack in, it's not like they're hacking in and getting an Excel file and downloading it that has all your passwords and names.
Right,
It's kind of like the nuclear submarine codes where you have to have three different keys.
right.
So they're virtually unhackable. And there's 6 of them that are recommended that I talk about on my website too. But if you go with, and Bitwarden is free, it's also in your hometown my hometown of Santa Barbara. But the thing about them is the free version does not have this recovery backup that is critical if you forget your password or need to get
Yeah.
in. So I
One
say for the
password.
price,
Okay.
less than a price of a coffee at Starbucks, you can have
Yeah.
monthly
No,
security.
thank you. That solves a big problem for me. I won't even go
Perfect.
into all the details, but that's way cool.
Yeah.
All right, onward.
That's awesome. Okay. Now when people are thinking about their morning routine and living a life, I like to think of online safety and cybersecurity as something that is part of creating a safer, better life. Because, and I'd like you to speak a little bit about this too, but I find people in particular, and even more so with women, but definitely with every human that I've ever met, when you feel safe and you don't feel like you're under attack, you take more risks. You go after dreams and things that you want to do.
Right.
You take that job, you do things. So a big part of why people would want to foundationally just make sure that they're protected from everything coming at them is so that they can really live their best life. And I'd love to have you talk about that a little bit more because many of your success principles
Sure.
support that.
Well, when you're living in fear, let's go back to the pandemic. The pandemic hit and everybody went into fear. And
Hmm.
when you go into fear, your brain is now firing off in what's called the amygdala. It's the back part of your brain. It's where fear lives. And that's what creates fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. In other words, you fight somebody, you run away, you freeze, like rabbits often do, or you fawn, which means you just could play dead, you know. And none of that's real useful in terms of being creative and successful. Where you want the energy in your brain to be is in what's called the prefrontal cortex. This is where your rational thinking occurs and your creativity, your intuition. You know, the Indians wear that little red bindi dot right here. It
Yeah.
represents the third eye. And we see the unicorn has the horn coming out of here. It represents this connection to wonderment and magic and so forth. And so basically, if you feel safe, if you feel secure, if you feel like you're, not going to be hurt, what happens is now you go up here. They actually had research of babies that were born during World War II, and the literally the prefrontal cortex was not as developed as the amygdala. They had
Mhm.
babies that were born in ashrams in India where everything was loving and everyone was loving. And the baby, their foreheads almost looked like they were aliens. There was so much prefrontal cortex development. So literally, the feelings of the mother actually affect you in the womb in terms of where your energy and your brain is going to be. And so
Mhm.
when we feel safe, this is what's going to be activated. That's where we have good ideas. It's where we finish our books. It's where we come up with creative solutions to problems. And that's where we want to be in collaboration with ourselves and other people, trusting our intuition so we get intuitive insights, whether we call them from our soul, from our higher self, from God, from angels. We all can argue about that. But the point is, if we're back here, we're not receiving that. So when you feel secure in your cybersecurity, your money, your data, your books, all this stuff that you have in your computer is safe, then you're going to be a lot less in the amygdala, which is where we end up not being very successful. During the pandemic, I spent the first 3 months just doing what do you call digital webinars, Zoom calls with
Mhm.
people to get them out of fear back up into here, so they could
Right.
actually solve the problem of how do we switch to doing online trainings and Zoom calls and virtual, all that stuff, because most people were just what do I do now?
Right. Right. One thing I learned from studying neuroplasticity is that our brains, because that both parts of the brain require the protein and the fats and the oxygen.
Right,
You can only fuel one part or the other. So if your amygdala, if you're in fight or flight mode, you cannot get in your prefrontal cortex if you
right,
try. It's just impossible. It's literally like shut off. It's like a one or a zero. So that
yeah,
now on the good news side of that is that if you can calm your fight or flight brain, or activate your prefrontal cortex, you can switch. It's like a teeter-totter. You can switch it, but
yeah. And
not effectively.
what I experienced, the first thing is breathing, like slow your breathing down. When we were
Mhm.
kids, I would take a breath, slow down, take a breath. There was truth in that. If we learn to exhale longer than we inhale, or inhale for four, hold for four, exhale for four, hold it out for four, whatever, that kind of breathing takes us back out of that flight mode. Now we can visualize what we want to have, which is security. We can visualize the results we want to produce, etc. So we're now visualizing positive outcomes instead of fear-based outcomes. And
Mhm.
knowledge, which is what you're sharing with people, gives people the options of understanding that it is possible, first of all, to protect yourself and how to do it. Because when you're psychologically ignorant of anything, money, your health, how to deal with cyber security, etc., you are going to be not able to handle it. And so we live in a psychologically ignorant world, and economically we're all basically financially illiterate in this country, and we're
Mhm.
also cyber illiterate for the majority of people. So this is
Yes.
what your passion's about and what your purpose is, and it's what we need. So good on you.
Very well said. It's
Yeah.
interesting. I put together my 7-step system, right? And the first one is know your enemy, which is not the hackers, because I do teach about them and how they work and the good,
Right.
but it's fear and delay.
Yeah.
And hackers are counting on that because they love an ignorant target. Because if you do something as simple as turn two-factor authentication on, you've just reduced their success rate by 99%.
Right.
So things like that are very powerful. And I love what you're saying because you know, everything you want is on the other side of your fear. But because, I mean, if I say hacker and hoodie, you picture the hoodie and can't see a face, and you picture the Hollywood, scary image, and all these cybercrime stories on the news. I mean, we are putting everybody into freeze mode. I go on news shows and I'm giving tips and stuff, but most of the time when I'm listening, you're hearing the bad news and they don't really give you anything practical to do about it. So you get in a frozen state or fight or flight state, and you don't have an outlet. And so part of what we're trying to do with this podcast is give people practical,
Yeah,
tactical things they can do. Because when you do take an action, that's the start of empowerment, which is another part of what you teach in your success.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. So, how do you think we could reframe cybersecurity while we're on the subject of from people going from that fear-based, like protect yourself from bad things and bad people, to more success-based? Like, I want to preserve what I've built. I want to preserve my wealth. I want to create generational wealth for my family. I want to, preserve the memories. If I have a ransomware attack, I want to know that I've got my backup set. So I'm not
Right.
going to lose things, and I don't have to acquiesce to a ransomware attack's demands.
Yeah, well, we know from the law of attraction that what you focus on is what you create. So if
Hmm.
I focus on being hacked, if I focus on, all the stuff that could happen to me, that again is going to put me into fear, but also then energetically, if we believe quantum physics, it attracts that to us. So we want to be thinking about what is the positive outcome we want, the security, the freedom, the peace of mind, the fact that I'm going to have this money in my inheritance to give to my children, as opposed to it's all going to get drained out of my bank account. So
Right.
you need to know, as you said, know your enemy, know that they're out there. Unfortunately, they're not mostly in hoodies. They're in these huge data buildings in Thailand and places like that
Right.
where they're almost like slaves from what I can
Yes.
read, and they're
Yeah.
all day long they're working this computers. So
Hmm.
they're out there. We need to know that. But at the same time, what you want to do is focus on your outcomes you want. So believe it's possible, number one. You always have to believe it's possible to get what you want. A lot of people are starting to question that in terms of their own experience with AI. Am I going to have a job? Is it going to be taken away from me? Are the robots going to take over and kill us like in some of the movies we see,
Right. Right.
whatever. But
Hmm.
the point is, I think you want to, first of all, start by what is it you want your life to look like? What
Hmm.
would you have to do to get it? So there's all the success principles, my books, other books, etc. And then how do you protect what you have? And then visualize what would it look like if everything was working well. I know for me, I literally I never thought about any of this until there was a fire in Berkeley and one of my friends, his house burned down and his manuscript and all the copies he had just made at a Xerox place burned down.
Oh my gosh, his entire book, and he had no backup.
Yeah, and another person I met once, they had their doctoral dissertation. They took it to the place to get copies made. The original and the copies and their computer, their laptop was in their car. It got stolen. So
Oh,
all that work was gone. There was no backup anywhere. And
right.
so basically, you always want to be realizing what does it look like if I have what I want. So as I said, I visualize everything working, having people like you in my life. This is another big thing. We're not alone in this. We've got people like yourself. We have, the password thing you just said, et cetera. And I think that what happens is that people don't realize there are resources. We don't have to stay ignorant. We also don't have to become you. We can learn from you. We can do the things that you guide us to do,
Mhm.
but moving us toward the vision of our ideal life. That's where you want to spend the majority of your time, not to
Mhm.
be ignorant of the dangers. We have to be aware of that,
Right.
and be prepared for that. I have a, what do they call it, a spare tire in my car. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah, just in case. Yeah.
you want to make sure you have that. And what do? I lock my car when I park it, And so just like we lock our house, our car, our storage units, etc., we need to make sure our data and all of our whatever is in our computer. If you knew how much stuff is in my computer, I mean, I don't know, the most memory you can possibly put in the computer, and
Right.
I think I'm up at 87% full.
Okay.
So I'm now I'm
I'm going to do a special session with you and make sure you're all set up,
well,
Jack.
I am, and I'm also starting to like delete stuff I no longer need because I'm
Yes.
retiring, as you know,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
also backing up stuff that I want to have in several places. But yeah, I'd love to
Mhm.
do that with you. That'd be great.
That'd be awesome. Well, and I think too, especially people. So one thing that I will say, you were absolutely right about that cybercrime call center. Those exist. There's also a lot of opportunistic individuals who see, here's one thing that a lot of people don't know. For $47 and an internet connection, you can download malware and you will get a mentor who's going to teach you how to become a hacker. And these are people who can start making $10,000 a month. And you think of countries you live in that are where
Yeah,
that's more money in a
that's
year
huge.
than their father made in or mother made in their entire decade.
Exactly.
So a lot of people are doing it. And I've interviewed a couple of people who have done this. And in
Really?
fact, I have some stories of them in my book
Wow.
because because when I asked them, well, what do you think about the you know, what about the financial and emotional impact to the victims? I couched that carefully, but I was trying to draw them out. And they basically said, well, yeah, I think about that sometimes, but they're from wealthy countries and they have more money and they can work. And it said, whereas my parents both worked two jobs, and I hardly ever saw my brother and I hardly ever saw our parents growing up. And so they're stealing people's retirements in the United States and other countries, but they're giving their parents the retirement that they could never have. And so the end justifies the means to them.
Justify it. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's and it's understandable. I mean, I really get that, having worked in third world countries, having worked in inner city schools, and you see
Right.
people that have nothing and they see people that have everything, and
Mhm.
that divide's getting worse and worse and worse, and you've got all these.
Especially if it feels unfair, there's another justification there that,
Yeah. And a lot of it is all structured, for the 1% to get more and for the rest of the people. And we see that happening constantly. It's
right,
unfortunate. So, but then based on that, again, you have to protect yourself knowing that that's out there. I think it's fascinating that you did that and you
yeah,
interviewed those people because and I really get it. I really get it. Having met people, I was in where was I? Cameroon, walking
mm,
along the beach. My
hmm,
brother-in-law was the ambassador to Cameroon, and we were
uh-huh,
staying at this guy's house on the beach, who was like the head of what we'd call like the Navy SEALs of Cameroon.
hmm,
And I'm walking along the beach, and I'm picking up shells because my wife collects seashells, and I saw a
hmm,
couple. This guy comes out, and he hands me a basket full of shells. He's living in his hut on the beach. And we started talking. He spoke enough English. And I said, so tell me about your life. And he said, I'm a fisherman, but I had to leave Equatorial Guinea because there were no fish anymore. I came up here and I fish and I take the fish and I put them on the side of the road on a tarp and people drive by and they buy fish. And he said, the biggest problem is I do not have money. My daughter's very sick and I can't afford medicine. And if I was him, I would do whatever I could do to find medicine for my daughter, and I wouldn't blame him for doing that. And so it's totally understandable. But at the same time, we've worked hard for what we have, and we
right.
need to protect it. And we can engage in
No,
philanthropy
completely.
and all that to balance that out, of course.
Well, and you bring up, and a good point too, when I talk to cyber criminals, I mean, when everyday people are not putting basic protections in,
Yeah.
like unique passwords, like not repeating passwords. Some of the easiest ways to get hacked are to just use the same password over and over because it's in one breach and then it gets in an automated attack. These hackers are not having to invest a lot of time. They just put you into their database and software algorithm and it spits it out. And it's called credential stuffing. And they're just trying that password of yours with one or more known emails of you. And they can get into your bank, especially
Right.
if you don't have two-factor authentication turned on. They can
Right.
also, if they hack your email account, they can even get in and change your two-factor authentication and stuff. So if people have not taken basic steps, there's this sense of like, well, they see you as complicit in the cyber crime because you haven't protected yourself. It's a very
Yeah.
fascinating phenomenon.
You left your car unlocked with a fur coat on the front seat.
You
What
were
do you
asking
expect
for
me to do?
trouble. You were asking for trouble. Don't blame me. Because
Exactly.
so I think that's the important distinction. Like
Hmm.
if you don't lock your front door, if you leave your front door open, you don't lock your windows and stuff, there's a little sense of, well, you're kind of asking for trouble. But
Right.
people are doing that every day, Jack, online, without knowing it. And so there's this sense that, well, you're kind of asking for, because a lot of cybercrime are crimes of opportunity. It's like if you leave a bag of money on your front porch and it disappears, it's not the same as somebody breaking into your home and breaking into a safe and doing all that. You're going to have those types of criminals too. But
Right.
it's much more most cybercrime is opportunistic. And, some Microsoft research found that if you turn on two-factor authentication, you reduce some of those types of email attacks by
Yeah.
99.9%.
Yeah. I
So
have that on
so
a lot
you're
of
kind
stuff.
of guilty, you're complicit in your own undoing.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to taking responsibility we talked about earlier.
Yes. Yeah, it's great. I'm so glad at the time we're launching this. I just want to throw this out there. I've just created a 2-minute online safety assessment that people can take
Oh, wow.
because one of the sayings we have in cybersecurity is the bad guys only have to be right once. So people listening, like maybe you do have unique passwords everywhere, and maybe you do lock your device, and maybe you do this, but it's any one of the 21 things you need to do. If that's the weakest link, they can get in.
Yeah.
And I have yet to meet anybody who's not in cybersecurity who's gotten everything down. And so what I'm doing is I'm launching this online safety quiz, and then I'm going to send you an email a day for 7 days with the 7 tips to get yourself safer. And I'm doing that for National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So
Oh, that's
I'd love to
good.
offer that to people. You just come to smarteronlinesafety.com and you'll see the link to take the sign up, and you'll get the quiz and the 7 tips. Because Jack, when I met you, I told you my mission, I wanted to help 100 million people live safer, better lives. And this is part of how I'm trying to do it. So that's great.
That's great.
That's great. So I'd love to see you have such a fascinating background, and I just want to say happy birthday. You just turned 80 and retired at 80. I know some people and a Jack retirement, which means I was joking with you before the call, but that means you're down to 35 hours a week. So you're wrapping up things like this. But what's next for you? Because I want people to know what you're still going to be doing and where they can follow you and learn from all your great principles.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if they haven't yet, I have a whole series of podcasts I did,
Yes.
which you can find online and go to, jackcanfield.com. My
Mhm.
website's still there, refers people to all kinds of things. We'll still have like online courses that we developed that I'm going to have some other people managing all that. So, Success Principles online, our Train the Trainer program online. And if you haven't read the book, The Success Principles, I highly recommend you do
And you
that.
just came out with the 20th
20th
anniversary
anniversary.
edition,
It's
which is
all
fantastic.
updated, including a whole chapter on success in a digital age,
Yeah.
um, which is says a little bit about cybersecurity and also about AI. If you're not learning about it, you're like not learning to drive a car when the cars came along. It's kind of dumb. So basically, all of that, and I will occasionally, a couple times a year, I do a free hour long belief change exercise. So a lot of, even in cybersecurity, a lot of people go, I'm not technical. My husband will take care of it. My IT people will deal with it. I don't need to know about that. I'm not good with numbers. I never was good with money, whatever. Uh, but basically, we have a lot of beliefs about I'm not competent. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not educated enough. I'm not blank enough is one of the big killer statements for people. And we
Mm.
can identify these limiting beliefs and where they were formed, replace them with a more empowering belief. And the trick is most people don't even know they have that belief that's stopping them from picking up the phone, from making that request, from taking the risks they need to take to be successful. So I could do 2 or 3 of those a year. That for me
That-
is like fun. That's like going and playing tennis. And so
oh,
if
that's
you go
great.
to jackcanfield.com, you can get on our mailing list and we'll be glad
Yes.
to let you know when we do that. It's free. I don't charge for that. For me, it's
I
just,
highly recommend them. They're so impactful, and you get to see Jack. And even on his courses, it's him on the videos. You get to still see him with
yeah.
his wonderful smile and great positive energy, helping to encourage you to do what you need to do to live the life of your dreams, really.
Yeah, and I'm writing a book about that process. I'm writing a book that you are possibly participating in called Living the Success Principles. People
Yes.
who've read the book or taken a training and changed their life magically. I'm
Wow.
writing a book called The Power of Wow, how to create wow experiences for your clients. And also doing a book on this is way cool. It's way out there, but it's so cool. It's a card deck, like a tarot card deck. It has all the principles of success.
Oh,
You shuffle them, put them to your heart, ask a question like, should I take that job? Should I marry that person? What's the best way to get out of this problem I'm in? You put the cards down, you pick a card. It's one of the principles. You then go to this book that we have. It
mhm.
tells you how to activate that, what affirmation you should be saying, what color you might want to be surrounding yourself with, what crystal, what essential oil, what chakra it relates to if you're into that world. So it's a
Uh-huh.
very spiritual dimension of all of the success principles, and that's coming out probably in about 9 months as well. So
I
just
love
finishing
that.
up all these books, and then I'm going to write my magnus opus, which is about love instead of fear. So we'll be addressing that amygdala thing again.
That is fantastic. Wow.
Yeah.
And everybody, having known Jack, he's such an inspiration and literally has inspired. I mean, with 600 million copies of the book sold, and everyone was read by more than one person, that you've literally, helped. billions of people on the earth live a better life, and that therefore you've made the world a better place. So I want to
Well,
thank
thank you
you
very
for that,
much. My
Jack. And I want
pleasure.
to thank you for being here with us today. So everybody, please, I highly recommend go to jackcanfield.com and sign up. And, and if you're having trouble trying to take action on making yourself safer and stuff, please, that workshop could help you do it. And this is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And even if it's after that, when you're listening to this, it's always the best. What's the old saying, Jack? The best time to do something may have been 10 years ago, but the second best time is today.
Yeah, the best time to grow a tree, plant the tree was 10 years ago. The second best time is now.
Yes, I love that. So
Uh,
please go to jackcanfield.com and do that so you can get safer and then build your dream. Because once you feel safe and secure, you can do that. So please go to smarteronlinesafety.com and sign up to do your free 2-minute assessment, and you're going to get 7 tips. It's my 7-step system so that you can get 700% safer than you are today. So that's awesome. Jack, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to see you and be with you. I'm just so happy you're having a wonderful, enriching retirement and living your principles and showing us all how our retirements can look.
Thank you very much. My pleasure, Jocelyn.
Thanks so much. All right, everybody. Well, that's another episode, and you know what to do. And until next time, stay safe out there.